Well, people in Halifax know the Windsor Street Exchange, or even if you live or in the area, in the vicinity, you know the Windsor Street Exchange. It is a complicated intersection rather, here in Halifax, and it's daunting. At the worst of times, that's for sure, as traffic flows in all seemingly several directions all at once. It's very, very difficult to navigate. I found this is one of these intersections here in Halifax that it took me a long time to get used to. I'm used to it now. I know how to navigate it. But that, along with the Rotary and some other spots there, it's a daunting exchange, the Windsor Street Exchange. You know what I'm talking about. Well, for quite a number of years now, since 2019, actually, council has been looking at a design and an upgrade to the Windsor Street Exchange. And as you can imagine with this type of thing, costs escalate. But this is a little out of control. In 2019, it was estimated to be about $50 million to upgrade the exchange and whatever that looked like. That now has ballooned to $150 million and doing nothing but going up. You can imagine where this would end up. With cost overruns, I'm sure it would be staggering. Halifax staff could go back to the drawing board after Regional Council voted against moving forward with the latest design for the redevelopment of the busy Windsor Street Exchange. Councillors voted 8-6 yesterday against the redesign from staff, which aimed to balance Halifax's long-term goals for improving things like transit and cycling infrastructure while also trying to reduce delays for trucks coming from the port, a requirement in order to receive more than $20 million in funding from Transport Canada. Tomorrow I'll be chatting with the Mayor of Halifax about all of this. This was one of his kind of pet projects, I suppose, to get this redesign approved and get work done to this thing. So what next? According to Sam Austin, reading a story on her website, says, I personally think we should shelve this and continue to work on the design and reapply a few years down the line with whatever federal or provincial opportunities that come up. I don't think we're ready. We don't have the work done. We're chasing dollars that don't align with what we need to be doing. So there you go, folks. Another massive infrastructure project which is doing nothing but ballooning out of control when it comes to cost. And I guess the question that I have for you is, how much faith do you have when it comes to governments, and in this particular case, the municipal government, to do this type of work and get this type of work done in a timely fashion and on budget? Because seemingly it's impossible. And we just kind of have been left as taxpayers left to shrug our shoulders and just say, oh, well, here's another massive infrastructure project which is spiraled out of control, and it's just kind of modus operandi, business as usual, and it seems to be the way that things go now. And I just think, I thought I'd throw it out there when we open the phone lines today between noon and 1. Dr. John Gillis will be by with house calls from 11 until 12, so we'll take your calls from noon to 1. What are your thoughts on the Windsor Street Exchange redevelopment and the fact that it looks like it's going to be potentially, well, no one in sight as to when it might get upgraded? And we all know that it's in desperate need of a redesign, but my oh my, how much overruns can we endure? This is just, again, typical of procurement and government procurement for sure. Lots and lots of other things to get to as well. It looks as though tariffs, the threat of tariffs is on, that according to the press secretary, the White House press secretary yesterday. And how do we retaliate against these things? Do we go dollar for dollar? That's what some are calling for. Reading a story today on our website, most Canadian business leaders support dollar for dollar retaliatory tariffs, according to KPMG. The vast majority of Canadian business leaders want a targeted dollar for dollar retaliatory response if the United States delivers on its tariff threats this week, a new KPMG in Canada survey found. It polled 250 Canadian business leaders, found 8 in 10 are bracing for a recession, but are still prepared to endure short-term pain to negotiate a fair deal that protects Canadian interests. So here we go again, folks. Another severe economic threat. This coming off, of course, the pandemic and a whole host of other economic challenges and headwinds. The last thing we need is this. Goes without saying. But we need to respond, and how do we respond? There's a big call now for Buy Canadian. But again, who out there can afford to buy Canadian? And if in fact you say, yeah, let's go dollar for dollar tariffs, retaliatory tariffs, well, that's a tax on you, folks. That means you are going to end up paying more for produce or whatever you buy from the United States. So it's going to be difficult no matter how you crack this up. And I'm not sure that the average person out there is thinks that this is very serious or not. Something else that I'm going to ask you about. How concerned are you about what could happen on February 1st, this weekend, if in fact we would take Donald Trump at his word, and why wouldn't we at this point? I suppose you never know with Trump. But if in fact this happens, we're looking down the barrel of a recession. So yeah, tough times, folks. Tough times. Again, things that we don't need. We certainly don't need this. We don't need any more economic strife. That's for sure. We've been through enough of it. Also, the Bank of Canada expecting to lower its key interest lending rate today. We'll talk to Clinton Wilkins about this at the end of the show today. Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru, he'll join us to discuss this. That'll be some relief, I suppose, but my oh my. Foreign interference. Some of the recommendations from Canada's foreign interference inquiry could go ahead despite the determination of opposition parties to topple the minority Liberal government and trigger an election at the first opportunity. Most of the 4 recommendations in the commissioner's final report would require legislation, but the commissioner, Marie-Josée Hogues, suggests a change to when Canadians are warned if the government believes something has threatened to the ability to hold a free and fair election. So foreign interference, something that isn't really gaining a whole lot of attention or traction right now when in light of everything else that's going on around us. And like I said, we'll take your calls between noon and 1 today. Lots of other things to get to as well. Lots of talk about developing of natural resources here in the province of Nova Scotia. We talked a lot about this earlier in the week. Premier Tim Houston, in a ad in the Chronicle Herald, on the front page of the Chronicle Herald, cited the case why we need to develop natural resources and why the time is right to do so here in Nova Scotia. And again, lots of talk about that, lots of emails as well, so we can get into that or anything else you want to discuss when we open the phone lines, as mentioned, between noon and 1. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness as well on the other side of the glass at the control boards, doing a fine job as always. All right, the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University released its Global Agri-Food Most Influential Nations ranking, the first of its kind report commissioned by leading professional services firm MNP evaluates the competitiveness of G20 nations in the global food and beverage sector. It positions Canada at 11th overall. Joining us to discuss all of this is Janet Music, Research Program Coordinator with the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Janet, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so tell us about this report in general. Give us some of the broad strokes, if you will.
Well, we were really interested in where Canada kind of fits in with the global agri-food industry. And of course, you know, with the recent talks of all the tariffs and Trump becoming into his second term as president, we really wanted to know how much support we had for entrepreneurship and agri-food in Canada, if, you know, our federal national food strategy was going to be effective in the event of a recession or oncoming tariffs, and really how Canada kind of ranked in terms of innovation or research and development and investment. And, you know, we found that we're about middle of the pack in terms of G20 nations, which, you know, it's never good to be right in the middle, right? It's better to be, of course, on top, but how do we address some of these shortcomings we have so that we can weather some of the oncoming economic storms we have coming our way?
Okay, what are some of the shortcomings then?
Well, certainly we do have insufficient investment in research and development and automation. And so here in Canada, though, we have a relatively stable manufacturing industry for food and agri-food. It's often very manual and not a lot of automation. And so in terms of high tech and sustainability, we could be doing a little bit better for value add in processing, which, down the line will make food cheaper for consumers. The other thing, and I think you alluded to this earlier when you were talking about government procurement and government processes, is that for small businesses, they often face significant hurdles when it comes to regulatory environments, right? It's often very difficult to know where to start, who to talk to, how you can scale and innovate your business. And then finally, we really do lack a cohesive food policy. We're so large geographically, so what is important to Alberta might not necessarily be important to Nova Scotia in terms of farmers or people who are in agri-food processing. And so having a centralized food policy might make things easier on all three fronts because there will be a framework for growing and scaling business.
What are the biggest challenges for this to not happen?
Well, I mean, everything is changing by the minute, right? And so things that were challenges a month ago are maybe not as important as, say, upcoming potential tariffs that may be significant and painful as an incentive to change. Certainly trade challenges and our dollar, I think you said it was 69.5 this morning. That's a significant hurdle when it comes to export of a lot of agri-food into trading partners. And I should say, I know people want to go dollar for tariffs that are raised, but we're 40 million people and they're upwards of 350 million people. And 75% or more of our agri-food is shipped down to the United States. So it's not really an even or equal kind of tit for tat, if you would, in terms of trade challenges between them and us, right? It's sleeping next to an elephant. Former Prime Minister said that, and it is true today as it was then. And so, logistics, geography, and trade challenges are all kind of facing our agri-food industry, and we could see the consequences of that in retail, at the meat counter, in the center aisles where we pick up some of our dry goods, in our vegetables that we have shipped here from other places around the world.
All right. What are some good things out of this report? Because there are some good things here that we should be mentioning.
Yeah, there are some good things. Of course, we always want to kind of focus on some of the things that we're doing okay. Certainly, while geography in terms of shipping plays a part in some of those negative challenges, it does actually give us a lot of room to grow. And I mean, literally, we have a really healthy domestic commodities, raw commodities and secondary commodities industry here in Canada. And a lot of people are employed in that industry. And it's worth about $13 million billion, I should say, in terms of our trade surplus. That's really excellent news, and we want to keep going in that direction. The other thing is, in terms of the G20, Canada's food security outlook is actually quite good. Now, does that mean it's as good as it should be? Absolutely not. We're still seeing people using food banks at about 90% more than they were during 2019 before the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's actually important because when you have a well-fed and healthy community in terms of consumers and potential laborers, that means you can have a healthy industry. And so we're doing not bad in terms of food security. We could be doing better, but all in all, in terms of our labor force, we do have a strong and healthy labor force here in Canada. So both of those things are quite good.
Okay, if people want to know more about the report, if they want to consume the whole thing, it's available online, I'm assuming?
Absolutely. So they can go to the Agri-Food Analytics Lab website, and they can find the full report there in English and in French.
Okay. Janet, appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Janet Music, Research Program Coordinator with the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Change is paying off big time for the Halifax airport. We'll get into that when we come back. All right, things are looking up, way up at the Halifax airport. Changes paying off big time. Joining us to discuss all of this is Joyce Carter, Halifax International Airport Authority President and CEO. Joyce, thanks for doing this today.
You're welcome, Todd. Good morning.
Good morning. So I read a story in the Chronicle Herald recently, and it looks like the news is nothing but good for the airport right now.
Yeah, so we did run a story in the Chronicle Herald that talked about our recent report with respect to the economic impact of the airport to the Nova Scotia economy. So the report definitely had some good news. It did indicate that our economic impact is $4.2 billion annually. Mm-hmm. That's with a B. So Oftentimes I hear people say million, but no, that's with a B. And what was really great about that report, Todd, is it's the first time that we have exceeded the $4 billion mark in the history of Halifax Stanfield. So that was pretty exciting for us.
How do you measure that?
So it looks at various components of airport activities. The report was done independently, I should say, by a company called CanMac Economics. They take a look at all components. It includes tourism generated through the airport, exports, cargo, construction, business activities here at Halifax Stanfield. And so it combines all of those components to say, okay, what is the impact of that on Nova Scotia, both the direct and the indirect impact? And so the $4.2 billion is the accumulation of all of those various impacts to the businesses.
Okay, so how does this? Who gets the credit? I suppose, and I suppose there's lots of credit to be shared, right? When it comes to this, it's a team effort, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so certainly the credit goes to everybody who works at Halifax Stanfield and beyond that. So not only the employees that are here in the various businesses that are here, which are over 100 businesses, but as well to all of the partners that they have. So, it really does look at the role of Halifax Stanfield as a piece of infrastructure, transportation infrastructure in the community, and it looks at how that infrastructure drives the local economy. So it is so much more than about, although it's a big part of it, obviously, the day-to-day flight activities. It does look at really the livelihood of people in their communities. So if you take cargo as an example, this goes right down to the fishers who fish lobster that then gets exported by air at a Halifax Stanfield. So the credit really does go to all of our partners and the employees working in those organizations who have built back the business post-pandemic.
Okay, when it comes to an airport, what's the ownership model look like? Who owns the airport, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah. So the airport is a non-share capital corporation. What that means is the lands are actually owned by the federal government, Transport Canada. Halifax International Airport Authority runs the airport on behalf of the federal government through a long-term ground lease. So we're responsible for the management, the development, and the operation of the airport on a day-to-day basis on behalf of the government through a long-term ground lease. But HIAA itself is really a privately run company and has obviously the mandate to do this through our ground lease with the federal government.
And this is quite standard, I'm sure, looking at airports across the country. This is kind of a standard way of doing this, is it?
It is, yeah. The government devolved the airports to local airport authorities starting way back in 1992. So certainly your major, what we call your Class 1 or your Tier 1 airports are all under this very similar model. And it's quite unique to airports around the world, how airports are devolved in Canada, putting them really back to the local communities who are best positioned to make the best decisions on what is great for their communities.
How about connector routes and airlines that are flying in and out? Some growth there as well?
Yeah, we were quite excited about some of the new growth. So if you think back to the pandemic days, prior to the pandemic, 46 destinations out of Halifax Stanfield, that went down to 4. And so during the pandemic at our lowest point. So our team has worked really hard to rebuild that. And when you look at 2024 and then into 2025, we almost have as many direct destinations as we did then. So we're just a little over 40 today. We're excited about some new service that's coming in 2025, and just 2 examples of that are Edelweiss, which is providing nonstop service out of Halifax into Zurich, and another new carrier that will be starting in 2025 is JetBlue, that will be providing service nonstop into Boston. So those are some examples, Todd, of carriers that didn't serve Halifax prior to the pandemic that will begin to serve them. But as well, we're very delighted to have back and have restarted the majority of the services, if pretty well not all, prior to the pandemic by our partners we have today in Air Canada, Porter, WestJet, and other carriers.
Right. How does that work happen? Do you have people who are prospecting, cold calling? Do you have people knocking on your door? How does it work? How do you increase routes?
Yeah, it's a very, very detailed process, and you're absolutely right. Part of our team here at Halifax International Airport Authority that report through to me is a commercial team and an air service development team. So they spend the majority of their time rebuilding, obviously post-pandemic, but growing now that we're back to pre-pandemic numbers, or will be in 2025. Going out and meeting with airlines, we get a lot of data. We look at exactly how people travel, and then we make the pitch and the business case to those airlines to bring the services to Halifax Stanfield. We know that our community wants and it deserves nonstop services to the destination they want to get to, and so our time is spent convincing the airlines to take those airplanes that they have and their crews and place them in Halifax on those nonstop routes. It's a very competitive business for sure. Those assets are quite mobile. Those carriers can put them anywhere around the world, and so we are constantly working with the existing carriers and new ones to bring services to Halifax based on what we know our community wants and, as I said, deserves.
And geography obviously plays a role, and us on the East Coast and with the Eastern Seaboard and proximity to Europe, and that's all of great benefit, I'm sure, and plays into, I'm sure, a lot of this stuff.
It is a great benefit for us. So our proximity, as you mentioned, into Europe allows us to provide on what we call narrow body overseas services into Europe. And so certainly these are aircraft such as your 737 MAX or the A220 that are efficient and can be flown overseas from Halifax, and the distance is a big advantage for us. So we definitely work closely with the carriers on when they have those aircraft coming into their fleet, how they plan to use them, and then obviously showing them the business case as to why we feel they should place those aircrafts in Halifax. And so the distance that we have to Europe definitely puts us at an advantage, and really, we're a hub in Atlantic Canada, but as well an alternate hub in Canada to destinations in Europe and beyond.
Okay, so what's where do you think the cap might be when it comes to growth here, or is the sky the limit for the pun intended for the airport?
For sure. I mean, we have witnessed incredible growth over the last several years, really the whole time that we've been an airport authority, which is coming up to 25 years this year. And so we see that growth continuing. We spend a lot of time doing long-term planning. Obviously, we run, as I mentioned earlier, critical infrastructure. It's not something that you develop overnight. And when we look at our growth projections beyond today, we certainly see steady growth for Halifax. And it really is around our city's growth, the population growth, obviously tourism, huge business for our region, and one that has grown and is back to, is actually back to higher than pre-pandemic numbers. So we, no infrastructure facilities such as ours can sustain long-term double-digit growth. So we've had that last year. We expect we're going to have it again this year. But beyond 2025, when we get back to pre-pandemic levels in all sectors, then we anticipate steady growth from that. And, services like we've spoke of earlier that we introduced. Again, we'll continue to look at what those services are and what our community is looking to get, and try our hardest to get those services for Haligonians and Nova Scotians. So for sure, we're here to support that growth in the city and in the province.
Okay, Joyce, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Todd.
All right, take care. Joyce Carter, Halifax International Airport Authority President and CEO. When we come back, a conversation with the National President for CARP. We'll be back.
Thanks.
All right, joining me here in studio is Rudy Buttignol, CARP National President and CEO. Rudy, how are you?
I'm great. Good to be here in Halifax.
Indeed. What brings you to Halifax?
We have a meeting of our chapter members, the Nova Scotia chapter. We have thousands of members here in Nova Scotia. The chapter is headed by my colleague, or is one of the members of the board, Bill Van Gorder. So I'm here to meet the board in person for the first time.
Nice. And for those who don't know what CARP's all about, give everybody an overview as to what CARP is all about.
CARP is the Canadian Association of Retired Persons. We're the largest seniors advocacy group in Canada and the oldest. We've been around since 1984, and we have about 250 members from 250,000 members from coast to coast.
Yeah. Well, so in a time that we're living in, is it even more important to have advocacy for seniors? I would dare say that it's always important, but I would think in this day and age, it probably is becoming heightened.
It's incredibly important. First of all, the population overall is aging.
Yep.
This year, 2025, the youngest baby boomer just turned 60. So there's a cohort of about 5 million people in the next 5 years hitting that sweet spot of retirement at 65. It's a huge cohort. They're really affected by the high cost of living. That's one of the huge factors that's affected seniors particularly, because seniors have different needs than younger people, particularly around healthcare.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So what type of, when it comes to keeping up with OAS and CPP and people who don't have their own investments, beyond all of that, it must be extremely challenging, and I'm sure that you hear about it all the time, very challenging for people to make ends meet. And what can you tell somebody who's relying on OAS and CPP? I mean, the message is not a positive one, because I don't see it changing anytime soon. What are your thoughts?
Well, there's going to be a lot of pressure. One, the cost of living is chipping away at low-income seniors' ability to pay the bills, especially those that are relying on old age security and a guaranteed income supplement, or they maybe have if they have the Canada Pension Plan. But those don't rise at the same level as day-to-day inflation. So making ends meet is ever more challenging. We on our plate, we've been lobbying since 2022 for an increase to the old age security for seniors 65 to 74, the same increase that was given to seniors 75 plus. And the reasoning is that we shouldn't have two classes of seniors, and that some seniors, many seniors at 65, have just the same challenges making do from month to month as those 75 plus.
What percent, and perhaps we don't know exactly, but kind of broad strokes, of seniors have something beyond CPP and OAS as far as retirement goes?
I don't have those figures handy, but we know that there are a lot of seniors that are dependent on it. And just yesterday, the National Institute on Aging released a survey that found that, in fact, the poverty level among seniors, which was officially listed at 6% and change, was actually closer to 14%. And so we know that a lot of seniors that are listed as above the poverty line are just barely a poverty line. That in fact that poverty line is more of a political definition than anything else. What is actually poverty? What do seniors really need to lead a life of dignity and make sure that all their needs are covered?
Yeah. But I guess what I'm getting at is that there was a perception, and perhaps it's still alive to some degree, the golden years of you work hard, you get to retire and enjoy grandkids, travel, whatever it might be, and all these things. Yet that dream is becoming a nightmare for far too many who are just barely making ends meet, and in some cases being rent-evicted and dealing with finding a place to live in their 70s, ill health, whatever. It's not that dream, I guess, is becoming elusive for far too many, I would dare say.
Yeah, far too many. There are those seniors that are doing well. They've invested well. They've done well. But there's a large percentage of seniors, and I would say far more than 14% that are just above the poverty line or below the poverty line, that are just making ends meet. I don't think when the rates for CPP and old age security were set that we ever imagined inflation really eating away in every which way at people's income. And it's not just the high cost of fuel and groceries. Rent has become really expensive. And on top of all this, there's taxes on everything, right, that just continually increase the cost. So, with CARP, with the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, our mission is to make sure that seniors age with dignity. And for us, dignity isn't just making do. It's to try to let people enjoy the rewards of their labor. They've worked 4, 5, 6 decades savings, and so they deserve a dignified life. And part of it for the lowest income seniors is making sure that what we've gained for old age security isn't clawed back with this future governments.
Right. So you say that's your mandate. How do you go about fulfilling that mandate or making that happen?
Well, 2 ways. One, we advocate at senior federal government levels. We make sure that politicians understand what our constituency thinks is important, and we do represent people. As a colleague of mine said, hey, we're old, we're cranky, and we vote. So you got 250,000 people represents a constituency that is actually quite engaged, and they will go out and vote. So federal politicians listen carefully, the same with provincial politicians. And because we have 23 chapters across the country, we have volunteers in most communities across the country that really represents the strength of our voices. In other words, these are not a bunch of cranky people in one city. They're spread across the country. They've got their ear to the ground, and they're able to advocate at the local level to their local MP or their local MLA or MPP to make people aware of what the issues are.
Yeah, absolutely. So inflation, obviously a huge issue. We're talking about that. What else? What are some big issues that keep you up at night?
Well, for seniors, it's healthcare.
Yeah.
Healthcare is a really big issue. There are medications that some are, erratically covered by drug plans, or maybe they're not. There's more and more seniors. The majority of seniors want to stay in their home. They want to age in place. And so they want to make the changes to their home to be able to do that, to get the home care that they need. So we've been advocating for changes to the system to allow tax credits, for instance, or a neighbor or a family member, a loved one, to be able to care for in their own homes, in their own community. So there are all the expenses around that are unexpected. And thing is with healthcare, as you get to a certain age, is that you could be riding along, you're quite well, and all of a sudden, if you need to go into a long-term care home or you need extensive help, all of a sudden, all those savings disappear quite quickly because that kind of help is very expensive.
Do you feel as though, or do you fear, I should say, that there's kind of a polarization or a pitting of generations against one another now? Because we hear about a lot of young people who can't get a house, who don't feel as though they have the advantages or the opportunities, I should say, that myself, I'm 55 years old, so I'm in the shadows of all of this, and people who are members of your group do you feel as though that there's this type of dichotomy going on here? Yeah,
country? I think there's been unnecessary polarization. In fact, there's the federal government in recent budgets have talked about generational fairness. What does that mean? They've been funding an academic group out of University of British Columbia who promote the idea of generation squeeze. And the premise of generation squeeze is young people are having a tough time because the boomers have hogged all the resources.
Right.
And that's just not so. The governments choose to spend money on a lot of different things. I remember having a debate with the fellow heading this academic group, Dr. Paul Kershaw at UBC. And, he was all worried about saving money for any increase on OAS to give it to younger people. And I said, well, if you're worried about saving $3 billion a year, how about $20 billion a year that the government spends on outside consultants, So it's a part of a bigger picture. Young people need their own help in terms of getting established, but it shouldn't come out of what older people need. Those older people have paid into the system, have built up the Canada that we know today with the kind of support services that weren't available 30, 40 years ago. So we, contributed into the system, and it's time to look after our older people and deal with the issues that affect younger people as well.
Right. Somebody just sent me an email from Mark. Says, how does CARP receive its funding? Can someone donate? And, of course, I'm sure that they could, right?
Yes, they can donate. We are a not-for-profit. We are not government funded. We are funded by members' contributions, members signing up. Become members. That's how we fund ourselves. We also have a marketing agreement with the Zoomer Media Group, where we give them marketing rights to our members for products and services that we think are in the members' interests. But we are not government funded, and definitely joining up is the best thing to do. It's $20 a year, and if for $30 a year, you also get Zoomer Magazine, which is a wonderful publication. And
what else will you be doing today, Rudy? You going to be in the area for people can see you out and about, or what?
Yeah, well, we're going to. I'm giving a keynote address to the group, and then I'll be around to meet the board of directors, so we can have a face-to-face discussion. And then I'm going to stick around for a few hours before flying home.
Okay, Rudy, it's been great to meet you. Thank you so much, and let's have another conversation.
Great, thank you for having me.
All right, Rudy Buttignol, CARP National President and CEO. Halifax Municipality orders a veteran to leave an RV he calls home. We'll discuss this when we come back. All right, over the last week or so since this story has been published on the CBC website, received a few emails, and a number of people have called the show talking about this. And Vanessa, through her skills, has managed to track down and reach out to the guests in order for us to have a conversation about this. The headline on the CBC website: Halifax Municipality orders veteran to leave RV he calls home. City says situation is now being reviewed by municipal staff. Joining us to talk about all of this is Matthieu Tetreault. Matthieu, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. And Michelle McClung joined us as well. Michelle, hello.
Hi.
So, Michelle, you're the mom, correct?
Yes.
And this is your property that we're talking about here, correct?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Matthieu. By the way, you served in the Navy for, I believe it was 9 years, was it?
Just under 9 years, yes.
Just under 9 years, and you had a back injury, which led to your getting out of the military, and you're currently. Go ahead.
It was a fumble. I was just going to say it was a fumble among things with my back. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're currently a construction worker. Is that accurate as well? I've
had to take a small leave to deal with this situation. So.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so let's talk about the situation that it is. Tell us about tell us about your living arrangements right now, Matthieu.
Well, I have a 1994 Glendale. It's well maintained. I built a 7.5 by 20-foot shelter on the side of it. Installed my old wood stove from my house that I used to have. So that's my heat source. It's under 210 square feet, so it doesn't need building permits or codes to follow, except for the stove, which is I got. It's all clear, perfect, not a problem. I'm on my mom's property to try and get ahead with the economy. It's a little difficult, as we all know, and I could go on for hours about that. But it's not just the fact that I'm a veteran. It's for anybody else who's in RVs. Like, there's lots of people. A 54-year-old has already passed away this year, from what I've heard, and I believe he was found in his tent, froze to death.
Right.
That broke my heart.
Yeah.
At least I have a roof. It's somewhere safe. It's private property. I want to be left alone, but this lit a fire under my arse to basically fight for anybody in homelessness situation and community the way the economy is.
Okay, Michelle, your property's in Wellington, which is just north of Fall River, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right. So one complaint led to this. Is that what happened? Did somebody issue a complaint to the municipality? Is that what happened?
Yes. And it's not the first time someone has put a complaint in over silly things to the municipality. The compliance officer that came out, I've dealt with him before. He's a super nice guy. I know it's not him making the decisions, but he's the one that delivers the information. A lot of our neighbors are upset, and people in the community, that this has happened. Now, I did receive an email yesterday from the director of Development Services, and they have temporarily suspended the notice to comply. So
For how
right
long?
now he can until they finish. They're doing council's doing a report on changing the land bylaws use.
Yeah.
And that won't be out until October. So for now, he's safe until October.
Wow.
Yeah.
Matthieu, what type of stress has this created for you?
A fair amount. I've had to take some time off work to consider relocating to an extent, but, without even working 40 hours a week, it's not enough to afford an apartment. Bachelor apartments going from 16 to 200 to $2,000 a month just for rent.
Yeah.
I have a dog. How can I get somewhere that's way less than that with that's pet friendly? It is near impossible in this economy. Even working 40 hours a week, if I amp it up, start working 80 hours a week, the cost of living is too high. It doesn't matter how much you work. I don't want to spend 80% of my life working to spend every dime I have just to keep a roof over my head that I can sleep in safely and spend 20% of my life there. It's ridiculous. The economy is gone too far at this point. So I'm not going to be silent about it.
Was there was the heat source a question? Oh, you had a wood stove. Like I'm reading the story. And has that been rectified?
Yeah, it was an issue, but it was absolutely rectified. It's been okayed by fire marshals. I have the wet certificate. The last time I did one of these in my own house was with this exact stove, so I knew the measurements and everything and clearances, and I exceeded them with what I would say. I don't even know. I exceeded them greatly. But it does pass. I'm standing right in front of it right now. I'm burning fire. It's my heat. I'm burning wood.
Okay, Michelle. So if somebody were to approach this person that issued this complaint, if they would have approached you and said, "Look, I've got a couple of concerns," you would have been able to work with that person, perhaps maybe move the RV back further, or perhaps put up some fencing or something like that. Do you feel as though that would have been the right approach to contact you directly? Is that true?
Well, yes, for sure. If they thought it was too close to the road, we could have moved it. If they didn't want to see it when they drive by or walk by, we could have put something up so that they wouldn't have to see it. All they had to do was come to me instead of blowing this up.
Yeah.
And with so many, like I said to the compliance officer, I said, what is he supposed to do? Move into a bench? I said he's safe, he's home, and he's warm.
Yeah.
I hope that the person that complained, I hope they don't find themselves in this position where one of their kids has no place to go.
Yeah, unbelievable.
What would they do?
And it was only one complaint. Is that correct? We know that for sure?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So where are we now? What's the timeline now, Matthieu? What have you been told?
Well, like my mother just said, I'm good until October, I guess.
Yeah.
But even then, I go back to work, and like I said, if I'm working 40 to 80 hours a week, and even if I save up as much as I can, I might only get a couple months out of an apartment living with my dog, and being able to afford to live. The economy is everything's too high. Food is ridiculous. I've seen lineups at food banks, and I get it. I completely understand, because the cost of everything has gone up 20% or 22 or 24%, whatever it was they said. And since 2001, like COVID hit, and then all went, everything went downhill.
Yeah.
Like, wages never went up. Like, why didn't wages go up everywhere for anybody working at all? It's just outrageous. So I have until October. I mean, I'll save up and try to do something, but I'd love to have a piece of land. Then I would put this on my own piece of land and build my home. Because I'm very well handy. I've had many compliments on the structure that I've built now. So, I mean, I know codes. I've been working construction my whole life.
So, Michelle, would you be happy to have him stay on your property?
Oh yeah. I'm on just over 3 acres. There's lots of room, to have him here if that's what has to happen. The thing is, when I've been given the contact information from one of the planners, and I'm going to reach out and start, see what we can do to make sure that this bylaw changes.
Right.
There could be someone living in a tent who has an uncle that has an RV that they could be living in safer than in the tent. Yeah. But if HRM doesn't change the bylaw, then that person is still in the tent.
Wow.
The bylaw is so old, they need to change it, especially with, the way homelessness is right now.
RVs is the way to go, I'm telling you. They have to be inspected, in safety. Why can't they be used year-round? Yeah,
okay. Well, listen, thanks for doing this. We appreciate your time, and let's continue to follow up on this, and best of luck, okay, Matthieu?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having us.
Okay, Matthieu, Tetreault, Michelle McClung. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Matthieu Tetreault and Michelle McClung. Again, something that you might want to talk about when we open the phone lines in about an hour's time. House calls with Dr. Gillis when we come back.
Thanks.
Dr. John, you're my medicine man. Dr. John, you're my medicine man. I don't use no potion.
All right, it's time for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. If you've got a health-related question or concern, now is the opportunity for you to get some advice from Dr. Gillis. Again, 902-405-6000, just as simple as that. Dr. John Gillis, welcome to the show, as always.
How are we doing?
I'm doing all right. What about yourself?
I'm doing well. Not enjoying this snowy sleet or whatever the heck this is, but what are you going to do?
What are you going to do indeed? How's the shift at the Dartmouth ER this week? I'm assuming you had one?
I'm in tonight, actually. No, I haven't been in this week yet. So tonight we'll see. As I said last week, when I think you were off, last week was the best shift I've had in 10 years. It was quiet and manageable. So
beautiful.
Pray for that again, but no great expectations.
Indeed. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Give us a call if you've got a health-related question or concern. Again, 902-405-6000. Just as simple as that. Again, 902-405-6000 if you'd like to talk to Dr. John Gillis. I don't know, any Super Bowl predictions, Dr. Gillis? You into the Super Bowl? Are you a Super Bowl guy? I think you would be, being a sporting fella yourself.
Oh, yeah. I really don't like either team, but I'm tired of the Chiefs winning, so I think I'm going to have to pull for the Eagles. Although have you ever been to a sporting event in Philadelphia?
I have not. I've been to Philadelphia. I've been to a concert there, but I haven't been to a sporting event. I guess the fans are the most over the top on the planet. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean it's been a long time, but go prepared for battle if you do.
Yeah,
it was an interesting experience to say the least.
Yeah, you're a Saints fan, eh? New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, they were terrible this year.
Yeah.
So, live to hopefully fight another day and get a decent draft pick.
Yeah, indeed. It's really tough though for Bills. I mean, to see the Bills, the long-suffering Bills fans, and with a quarterback like Allen, and to be able to still not be able to get over that hump. That's tough, right? Obviously.
Yeah, no, it's. I really feel for them. And look, he played really well. At the pivotal moments, Mahomes was better, and that's what it's been every time, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but if you look back in their history to the 4 Super Bowls and the missed field goals and every other bloody thing, it's hard to watch.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, 902-405-6000. Give us a call if you'd like to chat with Dr. John Gillis. David's giving us a call. Hello, David.
Hi there. Yeah, hi, Doc. I just have a question that's becoming an increasing problem for me. Is just food kind of getting stuck in sort of my nasal cavity, while I'm eating and stuff, and just kind of feel it in the back there, sort of scratchy and irritating and that. So I'm just wondering if there's any kind of like strategies I can employ to minimize that, or what your thoughts might be.
Stop putting food up your nose.
Yeah, I know, but it's so amusing for everyone else at the dinner table.
So when you swallow food, it's going up, it's coming out your nose. Is that what you're saying?
No, I not actually into the nose. I'd say sort of maybe more like the sort of back of my throat or sort of nasal cavity. It sort of seems to be going up, and then sort of, it's back there, and I can't kind of clear it out or anything like that. And then sort of eventually it seems to work its way. But yeah, it doesn't come out through the nose. It's just kind of in the back of the throat, sort of up in that sort of area, I guess. And I can feel it in there, and it's sort of scratchy and irritating and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's all connected in the back, but not right in your throat, so that's a little unusual. Do you actually see food stuck there, or you just kind of feel it? Yeah,
I just kind of feel it, and then, if I'm able to sort of, I don't know what the term for it would be, but, sort of clear my throat, or get out, I guess, and, will kind of come out maybe. But it's mostly just sort of seems like anything that's sort of fine particles, if it's things like, ground meat, little tiny pieces like that, or sort of little tiny sort of anything, and that sort of bits of rice, I suppose. But
it's pretty unusual. I mean, I would say that's pretty unusual. So I mean, you're probably going to need a referral to an ear, nose, and throat. I mean, that's not ultra fast, but I would get it moving. In terms of what you can do in the meantime, I'm not sure there's a whole lot other than when you're swallowing stuff, maybe take a drink of water or fluids with it to help wash it down if it's getting stuck. But it doesn't sound like it's getting stuck. It usually gets stuck down lower. So that's
and it's sort of it's just sort of, it's more like an irritation kind of thing, and then like I say, it's just sort of uncomfortable and stuff like that. So. And I mean, not huge amounts or anything, just sort of the odd kind of tiny piece. It just seems to I'm not sure. I have this sort of my nose sort of seems to clear from sort of front to back, and so it just maybe seems that for me, in any case, that maybe there's more connectivity between sort of the throat and the nose or something like that. But I don't know.
Unless you have some weird anatomy, there's nothing connected right in your throat there. So the other possibility is it's just irritation of the throat that your brain perceives as something being there. We're very wired to protect our throat and our airway. So it could just be some irritation. It could be acid reflux irritating your throat. Often people describe when they have acid reflux that their throat feels irritated and they constantly feel like there's something there. But, if it's that irritating, I would ask your provider to, send you off to an ENT, at least get that process started.
Okay. Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Good luck. Take care. 902-405-6000 if you've got a health-related question or concern. Dr. Gillis is ready to take your call. Again, 902-405-6000. I wanted to throw this story at you, get your take on it. A Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Trump Health Secretary nominee faces scrutiny in Congress hearings. Vaccines, global public health, reproductive rights could be topics at this week's hearings. It's general thoughts, I guess, Dr. Gillis, on this whole thing, if you care to weigh in on this.
Well, which part of it? RFK Jr., is an anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist who's been, trying to tamp down his comments to get himself approved because he wants to be in the cabinet. It's interesting to watch some of the sidelines. I mean, I spend a fair bit of time in Louisiana. Louisiana has a fairly right-wing senator called Bill Cassidy, but Bill Cassidy's a physician. And even though I don't agree with him on much, if anything, Cassidy has raised serious concerns about this guy, saying, look, he's, it's okay to ask questions, but, when you're a hardcore anti-vaxxer, it's a bit of a problem. So, he's concerning. There's something I saw on social media last night. Carolyn Kennedy Schlossberg, who'd be RFK's first cousin, just tearing him a new one, like just calling him out. The guy is not qualified to do the job, and I hope there's enough people that'll stand up to them. I mean, 3 of them stood up to Piggy Pete Hegseth for SecDef, but hopefully there's enough of them that will stop RFK. I mean, it's to a point the president should have a right to his team, as someone said, but public health issues, vaccines, women's rights, public health, these are important things, and these have been settled issues. We don't need this circus clown coming in and causing worldwide problems.
Why do you think? Why do you think he gets the support that he does? I mean, I suppose it's hard to get into the minds of millions of Americans, but I guess we could speculate as to what's going on here. Why is now the time? I guess coming off the pandemic, was that part of it? The pandemic was 5 years ago. We know it was controversial and a lot of talk about vaccines. You and I navigated the waters on these airwaves for 2-3 years during all of that. But is that added to the climate as to why RFK is able to be in this position at all?
Yeah, look, it's all of those things. I mean, if you look at what's happening, I mean, we could spend the day on this. What happened in the U.S. is a big psyop. For 10 years, various people, various actors convinced Americans that all of this was normal. Election denial, being against vaccines, questioning settled law on women's rights and a whole host of other things. And, if you keep saying it long enough, people are going to believe it. And everyone said, oh, that could never happen. But here we are. And it continues to happen. And it's if people think it's not going to get worse, it's going to get worse unless people do something to stand up against it. And that's what it is. I mean, people have been, reasonable people who 10 years ago who were very pro-vaccines have watched too much Fox News or listened to too much Signal or Truth Social, and now have been convinced by the guy down the road who is a keyboard warrior that vaccines are bad, and on. And that's where we are. And if people don't think it can happen here, it sure can. Yeah. Okay. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. House Calls continues when we come back. All right, House Calls with Dr. John Gillis continues. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. If you've got a health-related question or concern, give us a call, 902-405-6000. Get some open lines for you, folks. Again, 902-405-6000. Give us a call, again, 902-405-6000. Just as simple as that. And by the way, of course, a reminder, we will be opening the phone lines in about an hour, about 45 minutes time, I should say, for your general calls. So look forward to taking your calls as well. Minimum wage going up, and going up quite significantly. That is something that I'm sure that some of you will want to talk about, as mentioned, when we open the phone lines for your general calls between noon and 1. Dr. John Gillis, meanwhile, is by for House Calls. We've got some time for you, got some room for you. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. While we await some calls, Dr. Gillis, I saw this story, and I thought I'd throw it at you and see what your response might be. It's from the Canadian Press. The organization representing Alberta physicians is calling out a government panel's COVID-19 report as anti-science. Dr. Shelley Dugan, head of the Alberta Medical Association, says the report sows distrust by going against proven preventable health measures while promoting fringe methods. She says the report is anti-science and anti-evidence, and its recommendations have the potential to cause harm. What's your thoughts on this, if any? Who's the report from?
The report, let's see, the organization calling it anti-science, that's a good question. The report released without notice on Friday comes from a panel appointed by Premier Danielle Smith in 2022 to look at how data was collected. So it was commissioned by the Premier.
Well, that's no surprise. I mean, Danielle Smith is an anti-vaxxer or a vaccine doubter and has consistently made comments that have clashed with healthcare professionals in that province. She's done a lot of questionable things in healthcare. So, I mean, I haven't read what they've written. I haven't read the report, but it doesn't surprise me that they're being called out, because it's consistent with the to use the technical term, the dumbassery that is consistent with Danielle Smith.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. Michelle, hello.
Keep my opinion.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning. That's what I was calling about is Danielle Smith and the report, that provincial report that just came out, and I don't recall the details. It was a couple of days ago when I was looking at it, but my dear, it seemed very concerning to me what was happening, and now she's looking to enforce it. And I guess I was just wondering if Dr. Gillis could enlighten me a little bit as to sort of who this committee is, and just any info at all.
Okay, well, why don't I read just a bit of it while you're on the line? The 269-page report calls for the government to halt COVID-19 vaccines without the full disclosure of risks and to end their use for healthy children and teens. It recommends legislative changes to give doctors more freedom to prescribe alternative therapies in future pandemics, saying health authorities were too restrictive when it came to off-label medication uses. So based on that, Dr. Gillis, what's your response to Michelle?
Might as well get a broom, fly down to Salem, Massachusetts, buy some herbs, and cook some stuff up in a cauldron. It's witchcraft. And it's
right.
Sad that a government is encouraging this. So.
Well, and my understanding is that this report has been posted on their public health website as well.
Oh, and none of that surprises me. I mean, again, this is consistent with, it's one thing to have political differences of, economics and other things, conservative or not conservative. No issue with that. And, some fine politicians in this country, of that bent. But Danielle Smith and her team are just another chip off the Trump block. And we were just talking about, RFK Jr., same idea that just, throw science to the wind, but it puts people at risk. And, exactly. I'm sure the Alberta Medical Association doesn't take it lightly to come out against Premier Smith, because they hold the key to compensation and all the rules and regulations in hospitals. I mean, they've been doing a lot of things, but they obviously feel strongly enough that this is just what I said, full broom style witchcraft.
So does the Alberta Medical Association? Yeah. Fair enough. So does the Alberta Medical Association have any authority over the fact that it's been put on their website, and on the fact that there is no evidence truly to support what this report is saying?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, the government can post what it wants. I think what the AMA is trying to do, and I think, I actually was not aware of this report until just now. I'm going to go read it, and that'll take my day and make me angry. So anyway, it's all good.
I'm sorry for that.
I think, no, you're actually you're the second person to bring it up. So it's funny how things go. The AMA is trying to raise awareness so that the public will say, look, just despite the fact that you see this on a government website, it's crap. You shouldn't be listening to it. Now, again, is it okay to listen to a different opinion, to listen to different ideas? It is. I mean, and we generally should do that. But and again, without reading this, just even what Todd just read there, stopping vaccines.
For tears, I know. Oh my gosh! And there's so much fear among our parents and uncertainty now. Oh my gosh, I feel very upset by the fact that it's been allowed this much. What I would consider, the thing is that we as a public have to rely on certain things for that true information. And I believe a public health site, a government public health site, is one of those places. And I feel like, are there not checks and balances before something so harmful? And oh my gosh, there's just such an unraveling effect to all of this being put there.
Absolutely, but again, this is what I was saying a few minutes ago. This is part of the PSYOP. say things long enough and convince people to keep repeating things, regardless of whether they're true or not, people start to believe them. And when the information is disseminated and controlled the way it is now, what actually is an objective source of news anymore? It's very hard to know what to believe. And you're right. If people see something on a government website, surely the government's not posting, stuff that's bogus. But
witchcraft.
Here we are.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God.
Okay, Michelle. Listen, we're gonna let you go. Thanks for the call.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. House Calls continues when we come back. All right, it's House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. So the way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Real, hello.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well.
Okay. Question for Dr. Gillis.
Sure.
Last 6 weeks or 2 months now, I was my left-hand side of my face, from my eyebrow all the way down to my chin and up, and the left side of my nose, the inside of my palate. I can't even eat solid food because if I eat solid food on the left-hand side of my mouth, it's like, when the seamstress got that cushion pin there? Well, that's what I feel on my left side. I only could eat on my right side. And I went to see a doctor multiple times, and nobody wants to give me an answer. I went to CAT scan, MRI, you name it, I went through it. And my face on that side gets so tightened up that my eye and my nose and my ear plugs up. So I want to know what could cause that, and and I'm taking Advil, 300 milligram every 4 to 6 hours just to take the tightness out of my face. So I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I'm still not clear on. You were saying it feels like it's tingly or it's painful, the left side of your face and mouth.
It's tingling and it's tightened up. Like, when you get something that your skin gets tight on you. But that's what it feels like. When you get your foot or your hands asleep or whatever, once in a while, that's a tingling I get. And when I get that, it all tightened up. And if I don't take any my Advil, I take three. The thing is 200 milligram. I take 3 of them every 4 to 6 hours just to relieve the tightness. I went to MRIs, I went to CAT scan, I went to everything, and nobody wants to give me an answer what causing it.
Have you seen a dental specialist or an ear, nose, and throat specialist?
Not yet. I've been waiting to see one. But my doctor seemed like, I don't know.
I think that's what's next. You're going to let me talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. I would follow up with your family doctor to make sure you've been referred to an ENT and see what the timeline is. If you haven't seen your own dentist, I would do that. And the other option is what we call oromaxillofacial surgery, the dental surgeons who often help people with jaw problems and this sort of thing. So that might be an option for you too. And that's usually a little bit shorter of a wait than ENT, but those are the things I would push for, an ENT referral and what we call OMF, oral maxillofacial, but after seeing your dentist. So you've had the scans. I'd push those things. I hope that helps.
Okay, Riel, good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, take care. 902-405-6000. Let's see, Carl, hello.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
My question for the doctor is, a month ago, my hand, I hurt my hand, don't know how, I thought it was just twisted it. So there's pain in my hand, pain in my thumb, fingers tingling, and now it has moved, then it moved to the wrist, and now it's moved up to the elbow, the pain. It just hurts to move at all, the whole right arm. I have a doctor's appointment with my own doctor next week in Windsor, My question is, I did my own self-diagnosis through Google, and I came up with carpal tunnel. 2 questions. Like, I never had a history of carpal tunnel or anything. Why would that happen all of a sudden? And the second one, I have a TENS machine, the little stickers that you put, little pads you put on and vibrates. Am I hurting myself by putting those on and doing that, or is that okay?
No, that's fine. Carpal tunnel is an inflammation of the median nerve, which goes through the hand, and the reason why you have it now is it's a repetitive strain and use injury. Whether it's one thing you did or a series of things over time, it's inflamed, and that certainly could be the case. So the next step would probably be getting some nerve conduction testing, which your doctor can set you up with. There are surgical procedures to help with that. Sometimes a brace to immobilize your hand and wrist at night will help it settle down. Anti-inflammatories can help. So if the TENS machine helps, it's not going to hurt. The biggest thing with TENS machines is people, aren't shown how to properly use them. They either turn it on too low or too high or whatever. So, if you are using that, maybe just check with somebody who knows how to use it. If you're getting some physiotherapy or something, most of the physiotherapists, who would use these things would be able to give you some advice on how to properly use it. So, yeah, check with your doctor, see if there's some other testing, some nerve conduction testing to get done, and perhaps look at seeing a physio to get some advice on splinting and or proper use of the TENS machine is what I would suggest. I hope that helps.
All right. Thank you very, very much.
Okay. Good luck. Take care. 902-405-6000. Stephen, hello.
Yes, I was on life support for 2 weeks at the QE2 and a major heart attack. And the doctor, the heart specialist that was treating me, said, I want a picture with you because I was the longest person on life support for 2 weeks next to my machine. And he said he wanted a picture of him with me that you can come back with a bad heart attack. You can come back from it.
Okay. Do you have a question?
No question. But they really treated me good at the QE2.
Okay, Stephen, glad you had a good experience and glad you seem to be doing okay. Thank you for calling.
You need to get better, Stephen. Bye-bye.
Take care at 902-405-6000. Ray, hello.
Yeah, hello, how are you?
Well, you?
Oh, good, compared to a lot of other people. But I was just saying my left ear is pressurized and it pops all the time. And it cracks, and I just wonder if there's any home remedies that the pharmacist gave me some spray for my nasal part, but it's still like my left side of my ear pressurized, and I just wonder if there's anything I could do at home here just to help get rid of it. It's just weird.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean at home. I don't have a potion that I've cooked up for that, but
no, just
the spray, I assume, is a steroid spray. Is that right? Something like Nasonex or Flonase, is that right?
Yeah. But
Todd, I think I've been throwing people off talking about witchcraft and cauldrons, so people think I'm brewing stuff. So I gotta set the record straight on that. The other thing is, sometimes it's just fluid in the middle ear, or decongestant, like Sudafed or Advil Cold and Sinus will sometimes help with that. The other thing is you may need to have your ear actually looked at. Sometimes the feeling of popping and being full is because the ear is actually full of wax or things like that. So the nasal spray is reasonable, a decongestant is reasonable, but failing that, you may need to have someone actually take a look at your ear, see if they see a lot of fluid behind the eardrum, or if in fact your ear is kind of plugged with wax or other crud. So those would be my suggestions.
Well, Doc, thank you very much. You're a very smart man.
I don't know about that. Have a lovely day, sir.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, thanks, Ray. 902-405-6000. Dave, hello.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen. Dr. Gillis, if you don't mind talking about vaccinations. I had a flu shot many years ago, and maybe within 5 years, I think. And I'm very healthy at my age. I go to the gym, and like yourself, I try to keep busy, and I think that's our best way to combat illnesses, to be honest with you, and carrying extra weight and what have you. Now, I'm leery about vaccinations. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I question vaccines. And when I see Johnson & Johnson has pulled their vaccination off because of blood clots, AstraZeneca, I don't know where that is. I was fortunate. I got Pfizer, and then I had to get the booster. I didn't really want a vaccination, not anti-vaxxer, but I questioned. And they speeded these things up, right? I don't know if they went through testing. AI probably helped the, And then you talk about Fox and what have you, and I'm sorry, I don't want to tap into this and take people's time. My arm has not been the same since I've had the flu shot, and I haven't had the flu since. So I don't know whether they hit the muscle. And I know there's side effects to everything. I guess that's my point. Now, what I didn't like about this is CNN had the death count every day on the TV screen. And I have a friend who didn't come out of his basement. He was so in fear because of contracting COVID, right? And I think also, for me to go to the gym, doctor, I had to have a Pfizer identification, or at least a vaccine identification, to go in, or to Costco. And to me, it was so draconian the way it was dealt. And I know it was the first time, and hopefully we'll never experience this ever again. And we were still learning, right, from it. But I just didn't like the way things were dealt the way it was. We couldn't leave our districts for a period of time, if you remember. We weren't allowed to leave to our apartments or our districts because, the fear-mongering of getting our vax. And then there was the pressure of people saying, well, if you didn't get your vax.
Okay, well, without going over the same territory, which we've covered quite a bit, what's the point?
That's my argument. My point is, what went wrong when they gave me the flu shot years ago? Did they hit a wrong spot? And I am very wary that there is side effects to everything. And periodically, my muscle aches. And I know darn well it is from that vaccination. So is there a risk of hitting something that maybe they shouldn't have in the arm, on my left arm, actually, for the flu shot? That was years ago, by the way. And I'm going to hang up and just listen to you because I don't want to hog the line. You got a lot of other people with illnesses.
All right.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Okay. Dr. Gillis, any response to that at all?
Yeah, so sure. Any time you stick a needle somewhere, you run the risk of hitting something you don't want to hit, like a nerve or injuring a muscle. That is extremely rare, but it's possible. It also, if it does happen, usually heals and settles down. I don't know what years ago means, but it sounds like it was multiple years. Any injury like that would typically settle down. So sure, there are potential local side effects from vaccinations. I've probably given 250 flu shots this year myself, not to myself, but to other people, to be clear. 50 to myself would be a little excessive. To other people, I've probably had 2 people tell me their arm was sore for a couple days. After that, I called the Martians, the Illuminati, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and made sure that they were aware of all the conspiracies, and we moved on.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. If you've got a health-related question or concern, give us a call. 902-405-6000. We've got Dr. Gillis to the top of the hour. Again, 902-405-6000. House Calls continues when we come back. All right, continuing with House Calls to the top of the hour. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. If you've got a health-related question or concern, give us a call at 902-405-6000. Just as simple as that. Again, if you've got a health-related question or concern, 902-405-6000. Dr. Gillis, I saw this story, and I know you're a strong proponent of exercise and strength training and recognize the benefits of it for everybody at all ages. But this story on the CTV website, the headline, "Don't be afraid to prescribe exercise to elderly patients, fitness experts tell doctors." And the story goes on to describe a physician who was a strength trainer and a fitness trainer and is a doctor, and he feels as though that this is a bit of a blind spot that in the healthcare system that not everybody, but some have when it comes to helping seniors in particular as they age maintain a good quality of life. So I suppose at some point that ship has sailed for some people, but for the most part, I would think most people can work at strength training to some degree, and the benefits thereof are pretty evident to see. What are your thoughts? Dr. Gillis, I think you might be on mute.
I am indeed. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Like I said, I have this conversation frequently with people, and even in my own life, I've said a few times on the radio. My knee was bad last year. I was strapping on the feed bag, putting on weight, and what got me going was just slowly but surely getting going again. With biking, lifting, and everybody can do something. And I think if you take it back a step, not just seniors, but I see a lot of people, in my life or at work who. In their teens and 20s, maybe into their 30s, they play sports, so they're active, and then, I'm not playing sports anymore. I'm just going to stop doing everything. And this isn't everybody, but, there's a tendency towards that. And, the message needs to be at whatever age you are, activity is good for you. Maybe it's walking, maybe it's biking, maybe it's lifting weights. All of those things are good. And, and you just came from Good Life before the show. There's quite a cross section of people in there. There was a lady behind me on the treadmill, was probably in her late 70s, was blazing it up. She's in there often, but everybody's different. But the idea that you can't work out or that you shouldn't do weights, it needs to be individualized and tailored to someone's health problems. If they have bad heart disease, have to be careful. But the flip side is, and I see this often with my pain patients magnified. If you do nothing, you tend to gain weight, you worsen your health, you make it even harder to do things, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So whoever you are, whatever your ability is, do something and, get some advice. But by the same token, to bring it back to the original question, we should be having programs and talking about this to make it easier for seniors to be active, to do active things, whether it's, gym memberships, tax credits for this. If you're more active and healthier, you're going to live longer, but you're also, if we're being cynical, going to be at the hospital less and less of a strain on the healthcare system because you're healthier and doing better. It all makes sense.
Okay. Luke, hello.
Hi, gentlemen. How are you?
We're well.
That's good. Dr. Gillis, I just wanted to ask a question. I had triple bypass surgery last March. And since then, I've been on a variable cocktail of different medications. But my most recent blood work showed that I am on the cusp of becoming diabetic. And I was curious, somebody suggested that I should try Ozempic because I'm also trying to lose weight as well. And I'm just curious if there's any conflict with the post-surgery medication that I'm on already.
Yes. So there's a few things there. I mean, post bypass surgery, you obviously want to do everything you can to keep your weight down, to be as healthy as you can, within the context of what you can and can't do. If your blood sugar is up, that's an added complication which raises your cardiovascular risk. So you want to try and lower that. The more common type of diabetes, what we used to call type 2, non-insulin dependent diabetes, is often related to being overweight. The more fat we carry, the less well our insulin in our body works to control our sugar. So, weight loss and control is important. Ozempic can help with that. We talked about this a lot. Ozempic is a diabetic drug that, somebody discovered along the way that will help people that are not diabetic lose weight. And, I think it's gone too far. That everybody's wanting to use it, and without considering the other factors of what you eat and what you do. Specifically, what do you do with Ozempic in the context of post bypass surgery and those drugs? I don't know the answer to that. I think looking at it as a means to control your blood sugar and lose weight is a reasonable thought. I think you'd probably have to ask your specialist. Cardiologist or cardiovascular surgeon to say, look, with this cocktail of drugs, how do you feel about Ozempic? I'm not aware of a complication or a contraindication, but, again, not something I've been asked before. So generally the idea is good, but I would ask the pros who are caring for you in this case.
Okay, perfect. I'll bring that up with my cardiologist.
Thanks, Luke. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Don, hello.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going well.
Good. My question for the doctor is, it's been going on for about 9 months now, and when I cough or sneeze or clear my throat, I get like what I would call a flutter. It seems like a valve opening, closing, just very briefly. And it's only when I do that or when I It acts up a bit more when I exercise. It's right, best I can tell you, it's like basically at the bottom of the, tucked up behind the bottom rib on the left-hand side.
Yeah, so the left side of your chest.
Yeah, if you're looking at the center line, it's on the left-hand side, and you go down to the bottom rib, and it's just tucked up in the side, or perhaps next to. It's hard to tell. It seems like it might be, surrounded by muscle or something. I'm not sure. And it just stops. It goes and then it stops.
Yeah, so it could be a couple things. I mean, coughing, especially a hard cough, can sometimes trigger extra heartbeats, which are usually benign. Sometimes, things like what we call premature ventricular contractions, extra beats that feel more forceful. It could be that. It could be something as simple as a muscle spasm, from the coughing. Your ribs, your intercostal muscles. I've got an old rib injury from getting battered somewhere along the line, and if I cough too hard or bend over the wrong way, that whole rib goes into spasm and it hurts. It feels like a squeezing. So what to do about that? It's often we see people with palpitations, but by the time they show up at the hospital, it's gone, and we don't know what to tell them. If this is happening frequently, if you can capture it on a watch, or better yet, for $100 you can pick up what's called a cardio mobile, KARDIO mobile, on Amazon, which is a little device that'll actually read your heart rate and record it for you. So it'll tell you what it thinks the rhythm is. But you can also, it's also something that, because it's recorded, that you can show to your doctor. So it's probably one of those two things. If you're concerned about it or it's getting worse, I would definitely have a chat with your doctor. But you could take some steps to, monitor it on your own with the new technology that we have available to us these days.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good stuff.
Lovely day.
Good luck. Dr. Gillis, thanks so much. Always appreciate it. We'll do it again next week.
Have a great day. Cheers.
All right. Take care. That's Dr. John Gillis. That's House Calls. We do that each and every Wednesday from 11 until 12. Now, what is on your mind? We've got an open hour for you, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, give us a call. What would you like to talk about? 902-405-6000. How about the fact that Nova Scotia is set to implement what the provincial government is touting as the largest minimum wage increase in the province's history? In a release from the government, minimum wage will go up by $1.30 this year. Beginning on April 1st, the minimum wage will increase to $15.70 per hour, followed by a second hike to $16.50 on October 1st. What are your thoughts on that, folks? Do you think that that's a good thing? Obviously, small businesses feel as though, I think the term that I read recently today was they call it a gut punch. In the end, somebody's got to pay for all of this. What are your thoughts on that, or anything else you've got on your mind? The way to reach us, 902-405-6000. Your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, taking your calls. The way to reach us, 902-405-6000. What would you like to get into today? Again, 902-405-6000. How about minimum wage? This province is set to implement what the provincial government is touting as the largest minimum wage increase in the province's history. It will rise by $1.30 this year. Beginning April 1st, minimum wage will increase to $15.70 per hour, followed by a second hike to $16.50 on October 1st. They say that the annual adjustment based on the consumer price index plus an additional 1% is aimed at easing the financial strain on workers and will see full-time workers' income jump by over $2,500. What are your thoughts on this, folks? Because this is something that will be obviously bemoaned by businesses, not en masse, but I would say that many businesses, and we'll talk to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business and other organizations that represent business, and they will tell you that in the end, it's going to hurt their bottom line. And look, they'll tell you that their margins are thin and small already, and in the end, somebody's got to pay this. Somebody will have to pay this increase, and it'll ultimately be the consumer. And there's a good argument out there to be made that as minimum wage goes up and as guaranteed incomes and all of these types of programs that get floated out there as ideas to help lift people out of poverty. The challenge is that inflation then sets in, because if people are making more money, then that inherently will raise prices, unfortunately. So what are your thoughts on an increase to the minimum wage, a substantial increase to the minimum wage like this? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Is it low-hanging fruit? What are your thoughts on a guaranteed income in general? This is an idea that's been talked about for a very long time. According to the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, a living wage is well beyond what this minimum wage increase will be, $16.50. It's well in the vicinity of $24 or $5 an hour, something like that. And that's based on the Consumer Price Index and that data. So what do you think about a minimum wage increase? And let me add this to the question. If you're working for a company and you've been a loyal employee and you've got some seniority and you've got some extra responsibilities and you're making, let's say, $18 an hour right now. Let's suggest that you're making around that amount, or $17 an hour. Do you look at this and do you say, well, where's my raise? Where's my increase? Because if somebody who was making minimum wage was making whatever it was, and that increase goes up by $1.30 this year, then should everybody get a raise of $1.30 to keep up with all of the inflationary challenges and the reasoning behind the minimum wage increase? I think it's a legitimate question. 902-405-6000. What is on your mind today? You can talk about that or whatever else you'd like to get into. How about the fact that the Windsor Street Exchange redevelopment has spiraled from a $50 million price tag back in 2019? The redesign, that was what it was looking like it was going to be, and that is now at least $150 million to do everything that they want to do at the Windsor Street Exchange, which includes bus routes and cycling pathways and however the design, what it all involves is quite. The rendering is quite descriptive. Is it pretty evident that municipalities are unable to manage these types of procurement projects without massive overruns? Because I can't recall one time in recent memory in which government procured something and came in on budget and on time. I really can't. And as a matter of fact, it's quite to the contrary. Usually it goes far beyond what the budget was. So how much faith do you have that governments at any level, whether it be municipal, provincial, or federal, can procure something and get it done? Meanwhile, this Windsor Street Exchange, which is abysmal, it's very difficult to navigate, even for seasoned drivers around the area. Meanwhile, nothing gets done. And the project gets shelved, and it'll just end up costing more money down the road. So what are your thoughts on that, or anything else that you've got in your mind, including impending tariffs, which are set to happen on February 1st, which is Saturday? And we'll respond and react to this on Monday, of course, on Monday's show, 902-405-6000. Andrew, hello.
Hi, how are you, Todd?
I'm well, you?
Good. First-time caller. I'd like to just two comments on the exchange. 2 points. One is either Hinspe's suggestion that when council gets in full attendance, they re-vote on this, which could perhaps move it forward. Or number two, I would like to see the province intervene, same as they did with the tolls on the bridge. This all leads to the bridge. As far as I'm concerned, it should be part of the series of highways because it connects all of them.
Yeah.
And I think the province should take it over, and because there's nothing being done, it's just gone on too far, and there's too many thousands of people that are suffering because of two little political pipsqueaks that were on the news last night, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, look, that area is, like I said, for people who aren't used to it, it is extremely complicated to navigate. You agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. It was obviously designed, engineered for years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the fact that we have to project things out perhaps 20, 30 years. But at some point, we have to put shovels in the ground and get this thing going.
Yeah.
I mean, we just can't wait that long. It's just going to get worse. And I can imagine in 5 years, if we haven't dug a thing out of the ground for a solution here,
mm-hmm.
my God, where are we going to be?
Well, it's already up to $150 million, and it was $50 million in 2019. So I think the number, right. And God knows where it'll end up. And that's the other problem, is you can come up with a plan and tender it, and cost overruns will then, I think we pretty much expect cost overruns at this point, right? And that's a sad commentary.
Well, I don't know too many private companies that would survive with the kind of assessments that they get out there on anything that's done privately and that comes in 30, 40, 50% over budget. So
yep.
I can't see companies surviving that way.
Yeah,
but anyway, my strong recommendation is I'd like to see the Premier take the lead on this, take this over, because I don't think Council has been very effective in it. And I think it's too important to let it slide by. I'd like to see the province take it over.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Gary, hello.
Good. Well, I guess it's afternoon now, Todd.
Yes, it is.
I was just listening to the Sam Austin talking about the Fairview overpass yesterday, and he voted no because of the they left out the bicycle lanes and the bus lanes. That Fairview overpass is a mess, and it needs to be fixed now. And if we're going to put priorities on bicycle lanes and bus lanes, that'll never be done. There's only so much property there that they can expand that they can redesign that traffic snarl that we have had there for years, ever since the bridge was built. It underwent one change already. They used to have another ramp that went another way or something, and they had to fix that up. And now they're going to redo this at a cost of $150 million. And by the time that they figure out the bicycle lanes and the bus lanes, it's going to be double that again. You just can't keep on doing it. We got traffic that has to be fixed now, not 5 years down the road again. And I understand that I think Hensby put in a request, I guess, to revisit it in a couple of days, and hopefully that these councillors that are for the bicycle lanes will understand that you can't have bicycle lanes and bus lanes everywhere and just fix this traffic problem that we got.
Mm-hmm.
The Bedford Highway coming in there and coming and going is a mess. It should have been a 4-lane, and I think Peter Kelly was the one that decided that it was only be a 3-lane highway. At this point, it's just crazy, Todd. The traffic, the city is so far behind the times it isn't funny. Anyway, that's my rant for
Okay,
the day.
Gary, thanks for the call, pal. Take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. David, hello.
Oh, is this me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll take you out of speaker. All these people bitching about bicycle lanes and stuff, right? And bus lanes and stuff. The fact is that if it gets you to the point where it's like, damn, it's easier to take the bus than to drive, then it will work in the long run. But, I mean, then you got people that, they don't really have much choice, right? They sort of have to drive because of certain reasons or whatever. So I wonder if there's something like, you could get how you got like a bus pass, a bridge pass, so you're automatically flagged to go through because you paid for your bridge fare already. Like if there's people that have like a pass, a parking pass or something, they get sort of the right of way, or they're cool. I mean, I'm kind of reaching out here a little, looking for your opinion. But as far as the government procurement thing, I think privatization sometimes can be a lot worse, like Amera. I think the power was better run under the government than it is under a privatized situation. Or, I mean, we got American companies wanting to cut down half our forests and stuff like this, right? But okay, I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
Well, I'm not sure how to respond, Dave, to what...
Well, first of all, let's talk about the bus lanes and bike lanes.
Yeah.
I think they will work in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is they were actually thinking future, right? And what we need is Halifax can only put so many ways to drive your car in and out of town. It's just not built for it. It's an old city, right?
Yeah.
So people have to suck it up, sort of thing, and get on the bus. If you got to wear your mask or whatever, you're not comfortable with the bus. Sorry about that, but we're trying to transport tons of people from here to there. And everybody wants, I sit on the side of the road sometimes just waiting for the bus, and I count how many cars are driving by with just one person in it. Everybody loves their car.
Yep.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
You love getting in your car, you put on your favorite music, it's almost like your second home, right? You're driving from here to there. And you got your comfort, your privacy.
Yeah. Okay, David. Okay, listen, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Listen, the point is this, folks, is that how much, because, look, you want to do this right, and you want to do it once. And I get that to redesign something like this and to leave out bus lanes and to leave out kind of active transportation, and once it's built and it's done, then you're stuck with it for whatever the lifespan of the design would be, 20, 30, 40 years. I don't know what it would be. So I understand the frustration of saying, okay, you could scale all that back, get rid of bus lanes, get rid of bike lanes, get rid of all of that stuff, and just get something that's going to deal with the functioning traffic and make things safer. And that's an easy fix, and it would be less expensive. But does it solve the problem? Does it deal with the issue, the long-term issue? Now, I get it that there's a large number of people out there who think that we're wasting money on bus lanes and bike lanes and all of that stuff. But the reality is that if you look at any growing city, in my opinion, any city that's developed over the years has gone through this exact same phase that we're going through now, where what do you leave in, what do you include, what do you exclude? And I don't know that you can design this thing and go on the cheap just because it's easy to do that and leave out bus lanes, because bus lanes and transit are going to be integral in the next number of decades when it comes to moving people around. Because the caller was right. We cannot continue to just act the way that we always have and feel entitled to drive vehicles. Now, I don't drive. I don't get on a bike. And I don't take transit. I drive my vehicle. And I could easily, if I wanted to make it a part of my life, take a bus every day. But I don't. And I don't plan to. So part of the challenge, of course, is reliability and do the buses have the ability to get around town in a timely way? And this is all part of it. But I don't know that we can just simply scrap all of that idea and just say, let's get something quick and easy done here and scale back and take all that stuff away and get something fixed. I'm not sure that that's the answer either. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000, talking about minimum wage going up, a record increase, and the province touting this as something that is necessary for a variety of reasons, including keeping up the financial strain on workers, who will see full-time workers' income jump by over $2,500 as a result of the increase. It'll rise by $1.30 this year. So what are your thoughts on that? Of course, businesses will respond, and you know that they'll say that somebody's got to pay, somebody has to pay these wages, and business owners will tell you that they are on thin margins and that the costs will get passed on to customers. 902-405-6000. Also, the Windsor Street Exchange redevelopment is on hold again. It is ballooned to $150 million. At least that, up from $50 million just in 2019, as the redesign is expanded to include bike lanes, to include bus lanes, active transportation, and it's a very complicated part of the city, as anybody who travels there will tell you. And as of now, it looks as though there will be no redesign in the near future. What are your thoughts on that, or the ability of the municipality to procure this type of work? 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Dave, hello.
Yes, Todd, thanks for taking my call once again. I'd like to talk about that. I think we should bite the bullet and just go for a LRT or light rapid transit. I know it's costly, but just what you said there with the Windsor Exchange, by waiting this length of time, it's become insane, and it's not plausible at the moment. Perhaps get some help from the feds, who tend to want to make things more climatic appropriate, and a light rapid transit would be that. And I know there's a lot of, but like I said, the city's grown to the point where we need something. And getting to the bike lanes, who's going to be on the bike lanes today or for the next few weeks? I sure wouldn't be. I mean, we just don't have the weather here for it, but I understand where David was coming from, but that's not what's irking me. And thank you for having an open line like this. You had the councillors on Monday, and I was just, if you're not outraged, you're not listening. And that was Rick's motto. God bless him. On the fencing around Victoria Park. And I think that was, the fencing alone was at least or rented was $790,000, Todd.
Yeah, it was close to that. Yeah, in that vicinity.
And then the cleanup of the mess from the camp or the homeless folks that were in there, and the fencing was designed to keep them out, right? Mm-hmm. Because they cleaned them out of there, $200,000 almost for cleanup. And then here's the kicker, and this is what I wonder if you couldn't dig up. You know, the councillors quietly under their breath said, well, we actually purchased the fencing now. Maybe not from the rental outfit, and how much was that? So to me, somebody is lining their pockets here. And I don't know directly, but somebody is getting something here, because that just doesn't seem right, in my opinion. The cost of that fencing to go around Victoria Park for whatever length of time it was there for a while. But I was on Reddit, and I think, you might have seen that as well. People had done the math, and it's nowhere near what it should be if you're renting those fencing. Mm-hmm. So that's what really irked me. And like I said, if you're not outraged, then you're not listening. And I just want to say thank you very much for having, this separates you from AI. When you have radio like this, I hope, Todd, where you have actual people calling in, boots on the ground, like David, the last caller. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was interesting, had some good points, maybe didn't come across quite the way he wanted to, but he had some very good points, and it's marvelous. You had Dr. Gillis on, and you have, what do you call him, the FAC now?
Yeah, the FAC.
I hope that people avert back to the radio. I grew up on radio. My mom listened to open air, and I guess I got weaned on that. And I hope it never goes away, Todd. It's such a marvelous community thing. And people have so many tidbits of information, and I hope I add to that, and I hope I don't frustrate too many people by calling in. But I do appreciate what you're doing, Todd. You're great at it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Give us a call. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, taking your calls, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. A couple of things of interest that have caught my eye, but certainly whatever else you'd like to get into, 902-405-6000. One is the fact that minimum wage is going to go up by $1.30 this year. On April 1st, the minimum wage will increase to $15.70 per hour, followed by a second hike of $16.50 on October 1st. And look, no, everybody wants to see everybody doing well. We all get that. That's, at least I would think that that's how most people are. Certainly. But the reality is these things don't happen in a vacuum, that they impact other things as well. And a minimum wage increase impacts, first and foremost, well, the beneficiary, the person that gets the money. That's a good thing. But the business owner that pays it, it also impacts. And some large corporations that pay minimum wage, you could say, well, look, they can afford it. And in some cases they can. And I'm sure that there are some small business owners that can afford it as well. But that said, I'm also equally convinced and know that there are many that can't afford to pay this. And that the margins that they are working under are very, very thin. And that they will have to increase cost onto their consumers and their customers. And it's tough to do. The other layer to all of this, of course, and it's something that impacts, I think, other workers who are making above minimum wage. Where's their raise? Where's their increase? Because if you're making currently at a business $18 an hour, $17 an hour, and minimum wage is going to go up to, as mentioned, $16.50 on October 1st for somebody who's an entry-level position into the company, and you perhaps have been there longer and have had added responsibility and whatever it might be, I think that there's an argument to be made. Where's your raise? Where's your increase? I think that that's legitimate. So what are your thoughts on minimum wage and the increase and a guaranteed income in general? Also, the Windsor Street Exchange redesign, back to the drawing board for staff. Council, by a vote of 8-6, voted against the design as it currently is from staff because it's just too expensive. At $150 million. That's up from around $100 million just last summer. And originally it was going to be $50 million back in 2019 as this thing spirals out of control. So can we count on municipalities, staff, provincial government, federal government, and procurement when it comes to infrastructure projects? Because clearly we see this time and time again. They cannot and are not able to get this under control. 902-405-6000. What are your thoughts on that or anything else you'd like to get into? Again, 902-405-6000. Rick, hello.
Hey, good morning. Afternoon, sorry. Look, in terms of public transit here in HRM, you're trading time for, and time is pretty valuable to a lot of people. Just for example, if I just have to take a bus down, if I take a vehicle into the garage I go to, like an hour is gone, all right, and an hour the other direction. And it's be the same thing for you in the morning. You'd be spending a lot of time rather than, going in your car. So that's number one. Second thing is the municipal government has just made driving more miserable. They've put in so many bad ideas in so many places. I'll give you a couple examples. Hawthorne Street and Prince Albert Road, there used to be two lanes, one for turning left, one for going straight and turning right. If somebody's turning right and there's somebody walking across the crosswalk, it literally can prevent anybody from turning left if there's a car in front of you. And there was no need for it. It was just silly. Same thing up on Boland Road and Wise Road. They made a no right turn on right, and then they only for bike lanes. The same thing at Thistle Street and Wise Road. No right turn. So they've slowed traffic down. I bet you there's a million examples in Halifax. The third thing is the bike lanes. They spent, and I talked to you about this before. They spent $25 million revamping my street for 4 blocks to get from Dartmouth Park to Sullivan's Pond for bike lanes. And I did a bike lane count for Councillor Trish Purdy, and I sent it to the city clerk. It's now part of the public record. And what the count showed was just in the 2 days that I did it, one in good weather and one in bad weather in October, the good weather reports, this was at rush hour, both morning and night, the average was about 35 bicycles. In bad weather, the average was 12. So that's the $25 million main way for bicycles to get basically from the bridge to Prince Albert Road out towards, the other parts of Dartmouth. It's ridiculous, and in my view, it's all ideological, all right? It's not practical when they do this. And another thing is that certainly it didn't make the pedestrians any safer. And I just was talking to the wife of one of the councillors here in Dartmouth, and she is against pretty much, everything he does to the traffic. It's a pretty bizarre thing, and anyway, I'm totally frustrated by it. But you can make an argument. Yeah, it's for the future. We need to do it. What if all the cars were electric? Would it be the same? Would we be taking vehicles off the road because they're using fossil fuels? I mean, it's still going to be the same number of cars, and the overpopulation, add that to the mix. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Fred, hello.
How you doing?
I'm well, you?
Not too bad. Listen, I live in Hants County, and I'm retired now, but I worked in the city construction work for over 50 years. And I spent a lot of time going through that Winter Street Exchange. But now, here we had Tim Houston just get in, and he was talking about taking the tolls off the bridge. Why not leave the tolls on the bridge, take the money from the tolls, and put it towards the Windsor Street Exchange? And the other guy was just on, he said they spent $25 million on bike lanes over where he's at, and they don't mind spending $25 million on a bike lane, but yet they wouldn't spend $150 million on something that's steady traffic on. It don't make sense. And everybody keeps kicking it down the road. It ain't going nowhere. Maybe Tim Houston should get in there and start talking about getting some money from the government. He's the one got elected in for Nova Scotia. He's supposed to make it better for Nova Scotians.
Okay.
Pretty well all I got to say.
Okay, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Bernie. Hello, Bernie.
Good morning, Todd.
Hi there.
Good. I see your minimum wage is going to raise and come up in Nova Scotia. That's good. That's good for the marginal people and the last 30 or 40% of the people that are having struggles to make ends meet. So I think it's a good thing. What I'd like to see them is an extended and a guaranteed annual income for people that make under 20,000 or something like that. So give them at least a single person 50,000 and a family 80,000, and then if businesses that can afford it, put a price freeze on them. Businesses that can't afford it, don't put a price freeze on them. But I think it's a good idea. I think there's lots of money around. I think through the tax system and everything, the top 20% in the country can afford to pay more, and those top 20% in the world can afford to pay more. They're spending billions of dollars on arms and everything else, hundreds of billions going to Israel, going to Ukraine and everything. So there's lots of money around, and I just think that the governments should take a proactive stance, and these people that are at the bottom, the 30% that are at the bottom, give them a chance and raise them up.
So, Bernie, you're suggesting that everybody makes at least $50,000 a year, a single person?
Single person, 50,000.
Okay, and you don't think that would have a massive impact on inflation?
No, I don't think so. I think if they put price controls on, they can control inflation.
Price controls.
They raised the interest rates, and they brought the interest rates down and everything to control inflation and everything. But what they should have done after the pandemic was put a price freeze on so that these rents and grocery prices that couldn't be. We know that there's due to the supply chain and supply and demand that there was this pressure on them, but not as much as how they gouge the people.
Okay, thanks for the call. I'm going to respectfully disagree, but listen, I always do in Bernie calls. I don't think that that's practical at all for a variety of reasons. I think inflation would be rampant. Wayne, hello.
How you doing?
Well, you?
Not bad. This bicycle lane foolishness, I call it. I was born and raised north end of Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
I rode a bicycle all through there. Now, I'm in Upper Sackville. Now, I'm 67 years old. Still ride the bicycle. I leave Upper Sackville, go down into Sackville, down into Beckers. They have a bicycle lane there. I can guarantee you, I'm the only person in that bicycle lane. Now, how much money does that cost them to put that bicycle lane from Upper Sackville down into Beckers? I'm the only person on there. I could say once in a while, I'll see a couple of people on there, but most lane, it's just me.
Yeah. Well, Wayne, I don't know. Look, like when it says
I'm privileged.
well, like this with the bike lanes and the bus lanes, the whole philosophy is if you build it and you build it out now, eventually it'll get used, and until you build it, until it's available, it's not going to be. It won't get used.
You know
that is.
It won't get used. The only time I see on the lanes is like a bicycle club, right?
Yeah.
6 or 7 guys going by under 10 speeds.
Yeah.
Which is
Okay, Wayne. Thanks for the call. I'm not sure where else we can go with that. Look, I understand people's frustration with this Windsor Street Exchange. This is another example of people saying, look, if you didn't have bus lanes and you didn't have bike lanes and you didn't have this and you didn't have that, you could put something in there and you could get it done quicker and it could get done much less expensively. And look, I get that. But the reality is when you're building a modern city, you're building a city for the future, and you have to look down the road long term. And to do something like this Windsor Street Exchange without doing it properly, without the bus lanes, without the bike lanes, without the all of the amenities that a modern city exchange would have, then you're doing a disservice probably to the municipality and to the future. And I get it; it's frustrating, and I understand that it's $150 million now. It was $50 million in 2019. Where does it go? I don't know. Procurement in general, I think is a whole other discussion. If we could learn to have government procurement and proper procurement processes with accountability built in, whatever that looks like, then we can add the other parts of the conversation. But let's start with that. To me, making the bus lanes and the other components, the other amenities associated with this as the reason why this isn't happening, I don't agree with that necessarily. I think it's the fact that staff and governments are notoriously bad at procurement and at developing projects like this with cost overruns. I think when all is said and done, that's at the nub of this. Just my take, as I always say. All right, thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it very much. The Bank of Canada has lowered its key interest rate by 0.25 percentage point to 3%. What's this mean? Who's this good? Who does this advantage? We'll find out when we come back. All right, the Bank of Canada has lowered its key interest rate by 0.25 percentage point to 3%. This was expected. Joining us to talk about all of this is Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru. Clinton Wilkins, hello.
Hi, Todd. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm well. What's going on? It's snowy out there.
It certainly is snowy. It's January, but I think the rates are heating up. That's really the news story. The market was about a 95% optimism on a 25% cut of the key overnight rate. It makes it very interesting for consumers now. More and more consumers are taking a variable rate anyway, Todd. I think people are becoming more educated. We've been talking about it for years. There certainly are some pros, but even from a pricing perspective, someone getting a new mortgage today, a variable and a fixed, the pricing's almost the same. And, I think a lot of economists and a lot of consumers have optimism that the rates are going to continue to go down. Yeah, I think they're going to continue to go down this year if inflation is still low. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on GDP here in Canada. Not so hot right now. And we need to spur some spending. The one thing that we're really going to be watching is what happens in the U.S. Obviously, people are tariff crazy now at this point. There were some situations with other countries in the U.S. this week. And we'll see what happens next week and beyond with the U.S. I'm optimistic, though.
Why are you optimistic?
Because the cost of borrowing, I think, for Canadians being lower is great. And inflation has come lower, and it's below where the target's going to be. So the Bank of Canada is going to want to spur some spending here. And to do that, we need to make the rates lower That's one thing. And, I think there's a lot of optimism in the marketplace. The one thing we will be watching is the bond market. And I just need to remind everyone that the fixed rates and the variable rates do not move in concert. So although today a variable rate mortgage is cheaper than it was yesterday, fixed rates have not changed. And if anything, the bond market could go up and the cost of borrowing for a fixed rate could actually increase. So they're not tied 1-to-1. That's really something very interesting to remember, especially if you're doing a mortgage transaction. I think there's a lot of confusion and there's so many nuances around mortgage lending. People really don't understand. And that's why I think us coming on here and, giving some education is so important.
Okay, so the quarter of a percentage point to 3%. What does that mean to somebody in their mortgage payment, in their monthly mortgage or their bi-monthly payment?
It really depends on what they owe and what their amortization is. It's going to be dollars and cents. We're not talking thousands of dollars here, but I think any little bit helps. So if you had a home equity line of credit, your rate is going to go down right away. If you have a mortgage that has an adjustable payment with a variable, your payment's going to go down. So your amortization will stay in line, and your payment will go down. If you have the type of mortgage that your payment doesn't change when the prime rate changes, your amortization will actually get shorter. Now, some lenders will adopt the prime rate right away. Other lenders will wait until the 1st of next month to roll that out for everyone. So depending on how your lender works, you may see an impact, really straight away. Great news. For me, it's the optimism of it all. I think a lot of consumers were sitting on the sidelines, maybe Todd, the last, 18, 24 months because the rates have been high. But rates moving now in this direction, many mortgage rates are all in, that 4.5, under 5% range. We are in a, rate environment now that isn't necessarily inflationary, but it's also not going to put any gas on the fire. We're in more of that balanced marketplace, I think, from a rate environment. And I'm optimistic that we're going to start seeing rates in the 3s in the near future. I think that's going to happen.
Like a 5-year fix you're talking?
I think, 5-year fixed. Yeah. I think fixed rates across the board, I think we'll eventually see them in the 3s, depending on what happens with the bond market.
Right.
And to be honest, Todd, we have a couple more cuts here of the Bank of Canada. We'll see variable rates in the 3s.
Yeah.
Obviously, great news for anybody who already has a variable rate mortgage.
Yeah.
But I think for consumers that are looking to do a new transaction, it's definitely worth it to look at a variable rate. The real pros are you can always convert it into a fixed. So let's say the fixed rates continue to go down and, you're really a fixed rate person. Yeah. You can convert your variable into a fixed rate with no penalty. The other real upside, and I think people forget about this, if you were to break your variable rate mortgage early, you're going to pay a penalty of only 3 months interest to get out. So many Canadians exit their terms early. So certainly a big advantage. My personal mortgage is in a variable, if anybody's curious. I obviously believe in it. And, you need to really understand how it works. There's so many differences between the lenders. You need to really understand the product that you have.
Okay, so is there a psychological barrier that people often have, kind of like that under 5 is often a barrier, isn't it? That I'm noticing.
Yeah, and I before I came on, even a year ago, we were doing a lot of mortgages in the 5 and 6% range.
Yeah.
So we've definitely moved in the right direction, and I do think that we're going to see more borrowers enter the market this spring than we did last spring. I think the challenge in Halifax, we still don't have enough listings.
Yeah.
We're not building enough homes, and not enough homes are going up for sale. I do think that we will see more listings this year, partially because we've had a lot of apartments come online. And I know I always make the joke of the little old lady and the little old man. They're sitting on these prime pieces of real estate that would be great for first-time home buyers, but they didn't have a place to live. But now with more rental units coming online, I think we're going to see more listings coming up in the spring. And typically the spring is one of the busiest real estate markets all year. Right now is kind of a very interesting time. And, we're actually seeing a lot of purchases happening. Way more than a normal January. I think a little bit of that was fueled by this pent-up demand, people sitting on the fence the last year or so.
Clinton, always great. Appreciate it. And, of course, our next edition of Mortgage 101 goes when? Next month, right?
Yeah, it's just right around the corner, and we're going to be talking about the month of love. You know,
That's
February
right.
is literally around the corner, and January was Merry Detmas.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked a lot about refinance, and we're certainly talking to a lot of consumers about refinances as well.
Yeah, and if people missed that, they can certainly check it out online.
Yeah, they can check it out on our website at teamclinton.ca/radio. And you can also check it out right on here on
right.
the 95.7 News Radio website as well. All our previous shows are on there, and you can certainly listen to Todd and I. And we're also on social media, so you can check us out.
All right, thanks, Clinton.
Thanks, me, Todd.
All right, great stuff. Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Den Ness on the other side of the glass of the control board. Doing a fine job as always. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.